What up, creative world? Today is one special day. We're sitting down with the one and only 5ivefingaz, and we're going to talk about the Love More Than Ever book, a project that he's been working on for a while, and he just recently released this book. It's your first book? First book, and today we're going to sit down, talk about it. If you guys don't know who 5ivefingaz is, he's an amazing artist out of Norwalk, making big moves and inspiring the entire world, entire nation to just be caring and be loving. I met him about 2 years ago when I first moved to Norwalk after school, and he has been a huge inspiration, and I think it's pretty obvious in my own work. So I'm really excited. I'm very blessed to have this day. So let's just get to it. All right, man. Here we go.
All right.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a part of this.
Can I take this in?
Yeah, man.
It's just a lumbar extension.
If you don't need the extra lumbar support, you're good.
All right. I'm good.
So, I guess let's just get right into it. So for this, I want to focus more on this project specifically, but how this book came about and what inspired you and kind of what your process was like, and also dig in a little bit as far as like who you are as an artist, your journey, and kind of what has inspired you and some of the things that have led you to the path that you are now. So I guess the best way to start is Question one, right? Who is 5ivefingaz, and what is Love More Than Ever?
Like, how did I come up with a name, or like, who am I? I mean, I'm still searching to see who I am.
Okay. But as of now, how would you describe you? Do you see yourself?
So I think it's like a metamorphosis kind of thing, where it's like, I think with time, doing art just in life, like little things stop, like little things that bother you stop mattering. You know what I mean? Where like, I think it's just a natural progression you go through in life, where it's like 5 years ago, something would have bothered me, where as of today, it's like, I can't believe I stressed it, back then, like, it's going to move on, like, life is going to go on, so.
Yeah.
So I think that's more of the space where I'm at now, and the whole Love More Than Ever thing started from that. I mean, it started because of a cause, right? Because I was in Chicago at the time, so the South Side, like, I saw that, like, just and some of the neighborhoods are bad, and you hear all this negative stuff about Chicago, and so I started going around with canvases, and if you know me, like, I do scavenger hunts with free art and everything. So on some of the canvases, I put like $10 bills on them, like, because they have this place called in Chicago called Tent City, where it's just like a bunch of homeless people that live in tents. Okay. So around there, it's not that they cared about the art, but it was more so the money that they, you know what I mean? So it was spreading awareness, and I think like it didn't originally start like this is gonna be a movement. Like I didn't think of that.
You had no idea. That wasn't the intention.
And then a couple people tagged me and reached out from back here that there was a couple white supremacist flyers left around town, and I was like, that can't be happening in the town I'm from. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, can I curse?
Whatever you want.
I was like, fuck that. Like, like that can't be happening in my town. So I was in Chicago, and then when I came back here to visit back, with friends and family, I was like, because I was going back and forth a lot. Yeah. So I was like, I was like, I gotta come up with something. Like, I was already spreading positivity, and a lot of my paintings have a lot of like just emotion to them, and like just thoughts. So a lot of my art's like diary entries. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I try to approach it. Where I can paint, and I can I can paint and do what I want, but sometimes that free expression is what helps me sleep at night. And I'm like, I gotta get these thoughts out of my head. So sometimes like, if I'm on a train, plane, or whatever, and I hear people talking, like, I'll get an idea from overhearing something. Or if someone posts something, and I'm like, that made me think about something. Like, if they're in a bad place or something, and I just get inspiration from everywhere.
So it's like you're constantly listening, or there's something just strikes you, like, where it's almost like, so would you say that sometimes it's like you almost wish you'd say that right away, like in the example where you overhear something where it's like, wow, like, someone needs to hear this message?
Yeah. So Yeah, sometimes I do, and sometimes it's funny because it's taken an approach where it became like Robin Hood kind of thing. Because like it originally started from my galleries outside. The whole free thing was to take art out of the galleries because I was a little bit salty because like no one wanted to hang up my work. Nobody, you know what I mean? And at the time, I was like, you know what? Like I'm trying. It's like almost like getting a record deal now. Like you don't need. You can go independent.
Yeah.
So I took that approach and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go independent, just do my own thing. And I was like, well, I came from graffiti and doing graffiti in like in the early '90s, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take that approach. But I'm too old to get arrested, so I'm not gonna do graffiti. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put it on canvases. So the very first one I did, and actually I said this before, was this group called Coco Rosie. And it's like a feminist group. Like it's two sisters that are in a group, and they had a feminist art show. And I was like, huh, because I just like that vibe, feminism and all that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go check this show out because it's inspiring to me to see a group of females doing art because it's far and few between sometimes. You see all men dominating it. So I was like, I'm gonna go in there. So I went the first night and I was inspired and I was like, wow. I was like, I'm gonna do a painting for them, like one of my paintings, because I just had gotten back into it. Because you get stuck in the corporate world for like 10 years and you're like, you could draw and paint, but you're just too tired. So I started getting back into it, and I was like, I'm gonna do a big painting. So I did a big painting. I jumped on the train, and I just went into like the Lower East Side where the show was at, and I was like, I'm just gonna leave it in there.
Okay.
So I went in there, and like I had it wrapped, and like there was like B-list celebrities, like it was a lot bigger than I thought it was gonna be the second night. So I was like, shit, I gotta get this thing on the wall, and I had double-sided tape, and that's what I did. Like I was like, when I found my moment, because there were 3 big rooms. There was like minimal people in one room. I was like, I'm gonna stick it. Like I found a spot, and I just stuck it up. And then I left, and then I was like, shit, I gotta get a picture because I was like, I'm gonna post it.
Yeah. So
I left, and then I was like, that's the first time ever I put my galleries outside hashtag, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna check that hashtag and see if anyone found it yet. So I left, and then I realized that I wrote, because I still was developing it, I didn't know what the hashtag, so it was the or my galleries outside. So I wrote the galleries outside, and I searched that one, and it wasn't coming up, and then so I was searching the whole time, and then finally I searched my, and 2-3 posts came up, and then there was one that it was one of the group members was looking for the artist.
Oh wow.
So I was like, oh shit, like I don't know if I was in trouble or what. Because it was New York City, and I was like, and at the time, like, where we live at in Connecticut, New York is a scene, right?
Yeah.
So music, everything you want to do.
It's like the next level.
Yeah, it's like you made it, like the pros almost. You know? And I wanted to take that stigma away from that too, because I was like, you know what, you could be big, especially in this day and age, social media. You could be big anywhere. You could go viral at any point and stay in your own town. Like you don't have to, be in a certain geographical location. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna go in. So I went in, and they had me help them. Like I was just helping. I had the show was already hung up, and they left my piece up, and I just went in there, and but it gave me a lot of like connections and stuff, and just motivation. Because then I talked to a yogi that was there, and that kind of transformed me too. Because I told her at the time I was suffering from what do you call it? Insomnia. Right, like I couldn't sleep. Like I still do, but I'm more productive now. So she was like, "Well, you look like you're an artist. You're an artist. Like just paint. Like because I was asking her if she had any tips for me to like quiet my mind, and she was like, "Just paint. Put on some music that you like and just paint." She was like, "That's your form of meditation. If you can't quiet your mind." So I started doing it, and I just started painting, and I haven't stopped since then. And she's like, "Write down your thoughts. Write down anything. Like even if it's not like an ending point, like if you're gonna paint a vase of flowers or something like that, like just paint anything, anything that comes to mind." So that's when I started writing down words.
This kind of method of your artistry.
Right, and I started writing down words, and in the past when I was doing graffiti, it was always about the lettering and getting it right. But then I started liking the raw version of just free
get it out,
getting a quick writing. It's like almost like that practice where you draw something and never lift the pencil up.
Okay.
It's just one continuous line. So I just like, as soon as I think about it, like I'll think about it and then I'll write it. And then a lot of my paintings, like behind it or inside of it has another painting. Just because like sometimes I'm just free. So yeah, so that's how a lot of it started.
So would you, like, so maybe now is the art kind of, or at least in that aspect, is not necessarily about kind of so much the aesthetic, but more about kind of the idea of the message, or like of the verbiage, or kind
Yeah,
of.
I think it depends on
Mhm.
what I'm trying to. If I'm going for if I'm doing a show that has a theme to it,
Mhm.
then I stick to that theme. Like
Mhm.
my art show in the sidewalk gallery, like I
Mhm.
try to stick to
Mhm.
less words and just more images.
Mhm.
But there's always that, and I think there's always a social justice
Mhm.
aspect to it. I try to sometimes,
Yeah.
but but like it's funny, like to go back to like the Robin Hood thing was like, I'd give money out, or
Mhm.
and that helped. That came from like I'm not made of money. It's
Yeah,
not
of
like I'm a
course.
millionaire,
Mhm.
but it's like if someone buys like a hoodie from my, I'll put like $5 from that
Mhm.
purchase, and I put it back,
Mhm.
and it's throwing things like out into the universe and
Yeah.
good karma, and
Mhm.
like and I feel like it's been blessing me in a good, in a great way. So yeah, like it's just been great, doing like
So has that always been kind of like the approach of like having necessarily a message or something positive behind it, or is that something that came with time? Like, from as you, because I know that in past conversations that we've had, you've mentioned that you used to draw paintings or do other things for commissioned pieces like portraits during your while you're in
yeah,
school and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But one question that I've always wondered is that, like, as an artist, like, do you have an inspiration or kind of like a goal? Like, as an artist, you go like, this is what I want to achieve with my artistry. This is what I
Um,
want for myself.
no, I mean, I just want to be able to constantly create, like create in any way I can. Like, it's not
Mhm.
necessarily just painting, but like music or like anything I can do, like
Mhm.
create. But yeah, no, I mean, it's um, inspiration behind it is, yeah, it's always been positive, and I had to fight through that even within myself because
Mhm.
like I came from the old school, hip hop
Mhm.
era, like
So
fuck
being
that, I'm tough
LBW
and
was
shit.
like,
So it was like
yeah.
that male ego shit that I
Okay.
had to fight through eventually, especially on social media, because you got your boys,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know what? Then you gotta wear your heart on your sleeve because I went all in, and I was like, you know what? I'm like, I don't care because it made. I was getting messages from people being like, these messages are hitting home with me.
Mhm.
Like this is, hitting home with how I feel right
Yeah.
now. And I'm like, you know what? If it's more like me just like I said, like like the diary entry, like just
Mhm.
having thoughts. And I'm like, huh, you know what? And I think of something. I'm like, how can I write that? And then like I'll think about it, and then I'll put it on my phone notes, or I text
Mhm.
it to myself. And then later on, I'm like, how can I verbally say this or write it so
And kind of how refine it in a way
yeah,
to put
refine
it
it
out.
so that way it relates to other people, not
Mhm.
just me. And a lot of them it's more you. Like I always say me. I don't say I don't say me or I a lot.
Mhm.
I like to say you,
Mhm.
or because the whole Love More Than Ever movement is more about uplifting each
Mhm.
other. And that's another thing is like when people first saw it and heard it,
Mhm.
and when I talk in schools, a lot of the kids thought it was like, they call it like the mushy love, like,
Uh-huh.
like boyfriend, girlfriend love.
Okay.
So every time I go to talks, I'm like, it's more about uplifting each other.
Mhm.
Like, you're my boy, like another friend of mine. Like,
Mhm.
if you're down, like, I'm here for you,
Mhm.
like trying to help other people out in the
Mhm.
community and anywhere. You don't even have to know them.
Mhm.
And it pertains to all people. And that's why
Mhm.
I always try to tell people it's not political. It's
Mhm.
not like, why are you helping him? Like, he's
Yeah.
a Republican or he's a Democrat. Like, it has
Okay.
none. I look at humanity in general,
Mhm.
So these messages are just for anyone that can relate to it,
Yeah.
And it's like, again, like that whole male ego thing. And like, at first I think it was like I would get messages, positive messages, but then I think some of my friends thought it was either like an angle I was taking or
Mhm.
like, like I had gone crazy. And they're like,
Yeah.
yo, Five is talking all this love stuff. But it was the truth, And I think I'm at a point in my life where at the time, like we're having a daughter and like
Mhm.
seeing what was going on, especially
Mhm.
like 2016, like
Mhm.
different political sides. It became very political on
Okay.
social media,
Mhm.
and you see friends that posting stuff or saying stuff that you never would think.
Okay. Kind of catch you by surprise. Like,
Yeah, and
oh,
you're
what are
just
you
like,
talking about?
whoa, like we gotta
Mhm.
reset, like like I still love you and we're still
Yeah.
friends, but like you gotta, whoa, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what would you, what would it, what sort of advice would you give somebody, an artist or creative, or just any individual right now, who is trying to kind of find something within themselves. Like for instance, right? Like I'll speak for me personally, right? I think that I'm at a point in my artistry where like and I'll say this bluntly, like I've been super inspired by your work. You know, I mean, like I think that that's partially where Do You Boo Boo came from, right? Like seeing you being able to create a message and really put yourself out there, and to your point of like people taking like a crooked eye, like what are you talking about, all this love stuff, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody, like what advice would you give to an artist or creative who is trying to have to give more meaning or to put more meaning behind their work, that's trying to find a deeper meaning within themselves, like.
And I can only speak from experience, but I think you have to go into it not forcing something, you know, on people where you think, oh, this is it right here, you know, because for me, like again, personally, like I didn't go into it that way. I didn't go like, oh, this is it. Like I remember being in my apartment in Chicago and being like, I have to say something for this, for the white supremacists, for Southside Chicago, and I was like, you know what? So I'm sitting there, it was like storming out, and I'm sitting there with pieces of paper, and I'm just like, so the original one was More Love Than Ever, like, you know, that's what we need now is More Love Than Ever, and then I was like, well, you know, it's kind of long. What we need now is more love than ever. And I was like, how about just more love than ever? And I was like, it sounds kind of cliche. And then I was like, I was flipping it around, and I was like, I wanted it to stay at 4 words. So I was like, love more than ever. And I was like, that's cool, but it sounds weird. It sounds like there should be a comma there or like a pause or something. Like love more than ever. You know, like, so I'm like, but I kind of like it because of that, you know? And it just, and then to this day, like I always say, it's not, I don't want it to become, you know, something you see at TJ Maxx or something. You know what I mean? It was never about being a cliche saying, you know. I want it to be more about the actions behind it. So when you see it, you're like, holy shit, you know, about uplifting you. And like again, when I started doing the stencils, people were reaching out and they're like, you know, I just had a hard day. Like I found out, you know, my dog had cancer, was gonna die, or my grandmother died, and I get those messages a lot, and I'm like, oh wow. And then it almost helps me heal, like with personal tragedies and stuff, you know. So it's like a two-way street, and I was like, wow, this is actually powerful. But you know, you never know what you put down, how it can affect other people. But you also have to put your truth in it. That's what it is. You put your truth in it. No matter what other people are gonna say, you have to just do it a lot, and just do it a lot, and keep doing it. And like repetition counts. Like like I said it before. Like you know, I've said it enough, and I'm like, and it was like 3 months into it, and I'm like, damn, like it's like I don't want to get tired of this, you know, because I'm love more than ever this and love more than ever. And then I was like, look. I went on and I saw that it was available for the URL, and I was like, oh shit, I'm on this right now. And then originally it was just going to be me posting pictures of every single stencil that I did. And then people started hitting me up for like t-shirts, and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, well, I'm going to make t-shirts and then use that money for good where I can, you know. So then that evolved, and then it started growing, and then I started seeing, you know, people from other countries were buying it, and I was like, wow, like this is cool because of the meaning behind it. And that's what I always try to drive, is that there's more to just that, you know. That's it. I don't want it to, and I get pissed off when people call it a logo or a brand. It's not, and I always said that before. I'm like, it's not a brand like a clothing brand or whatever. It's a reminder to be kind to everyone, you know. And then once I was in, I was all in. Like, I'll post what I feel no matter what, you know, even the paintings that I paint, and I can always find someone always reach out to me and relates to that one, or you know, wants it, but I still hold on to the same thought of my galleries outside, where it's like there's only one, you know, like you can have it for free, if you find it, you know, or if I do an event like the book signing, you know, it's more like a thank you to everyone that's helped me out or bought the book or whatever.
So, and as far as the events, right? Like I know that you just spoke about the gallery being outside. As far as like events and other things that you do to kind of promote the message, like how often do you do things like this, like the book signing or galleries
and I'll tell you this, and I find it funny because I always talk about the universe, and at this point, like in my life, it hasn't guided me wrong, and
Mhm.
I just leave it up to the universe. Like
So
it'll
whatever
come to me.
happens,
So it'll come to me.
Uh-huh.
And Erin, you
Uh-huh.
know, who's my girlfriend, fiance,
Yeah,
she's like, she'll know that look, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh.
When the light
And
bulb
she's like,
hits.
oh
Oh
no.
no. Here we
She's
go.
like, well, what now?
Mhm.
And she's always there for her, but she's like, oh no.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I won't tell her and I just post it.
Uh-huh.
Like the 30 vein. She's
Uh-huh.
like, I mean, you gotta do a lot of painting.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. Or, you know, if I do like and I've done it before where it was like, you know, free t-shirt giveaway or
Mhm.
something. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so it's always like, it always is like either something political happen, not political, but just social justice or something
Mhm.
that comes up, or it just comes to me. Like I could be in the middle of the day doing something else,
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh my god, you know, it'd be cool
Uh-huh.
if I gave away 30 free paintings. And inside there's a little voice saying, but you gotta paint those fucking 30.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I have enough. Like, cause I in my phone, like I just scraps of paper. Like I
Mhm.
have enough words and those sayings
Mhm.
that I know I can come up with that, and that's usually what I do. You know, they're
Mhm.
just on paper rough. It's not like full paintings, or,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it's I never know when it's gonna come to me.
Yeah.
Like this was a natural thing, the book signing, because it was a way. I've got, you know, people reach out to me about when it's gonna be, when it's gonna
Mhm.
happen. So I was like, you know what,
Yeah.
might as well do it. You
Yeah.
know, talk to people, thank everyone.
Yeah. So as far as the book itself, how long, like, what was that process like, and how long was it from the time we were like, okay, like,
So
I want to do this book, until the time you had the first book in your hand?
So the book itself, I've always wanted to write it. Like
Mhm.
for the past 15 years, I talked about one day I want to write a children's book or a
Mhm.
book in general. And I was like, but you know, it was like just pie in the sky idea, and it
Mhm.
was just like, I know I'm gonna get to it one
Someday
day.
this will happen.
Yeah, someday. But then again, I was like, you know what? I'm just a big believer in just sitting back and letting it hit you. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously working towards it.
Yeah.
But there's a saying. What's it say? Something finds you when you're working. I don't know what this
Uh-huh.
saying is. We can Google it later. Or inspiration finds you while you're working. I
Okay.
think it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously I was always working and,
Mhm.
and trying to do something else, and then that leads you to another way, and then you
Mhm.
go down another path, and you go another, and then eventually you're like, wait, this is cool. Like I could
Mhm.
do this.
Mhm.
So it wasn't. I didn't get serious with it till about 2 years ago, where
Mhm.
I did do a mini book,
Mhm.
and it was on my yacht was outside, and it was like a yearbook, year in review.
Okay.
It was for, I think it was like 2017,
Mhm.
and I put a lot of my paintings in that.
Okay.
You know, there were no rhymes or anything.
Mhm.
Then like a year and a half ago, or yeah, like 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? Some of these brightly colored ones that I've done, I can
Mhm.
incorporate into my book somehow.
Okay.
But how can I do that? And then
Mhm.
then the more I started going to schools, talking to kids, and just
Mhm.
seeing what they were reading, I did research and you know, one of my biggest heroes is Dr. Seuss, and
Okay.
Mr. Rogers, and
Mhm.
you know, like the Giving Tree is one of my favorite books.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what, I could do it in the same vein, especially like Dr. Seuss, coming from like rap. I used to rap all the
Uh-huh.
time. I was like, I could do a rhyme. Like I could
Yeah,
do
yeah,
rhymes,
yeah.
you know, and I was like, but how do I want to get, you know, that deep into it? Like, cause it's, so I did like a draft, and I have like 3 or 4 different covers that I have for it, and then I just started writing it out. And originally it was just my paintings. It was a book.
Mhm.
It was gonna be a children's book of just my paintings.
So just an illustration of just a collection of different.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I was like, you know what? Like I always want to do an animation. I want to do a stop motion film. I want to do like an animation film. And I was like, how can I do? And as a kid, I always used to draw me as a kid.
Okay.
Like,
So that's where physics comes
yeah,
from.
yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, I was like, how can I bring that back? Like that'd be cool if I brought that back. So then I just started sketching, and I came up with it. And, you know, my old sketches, but I just refined it a little bit more. But I wanted to keep the essence of the roughness. Like
Of course.
I
yeah.
like the rough, you know, because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
from being a fine art painter, like I could
Mhm.
paint flowers, I could paint beautiful things, and
Mhm.
to get them as close as possible and make them look like a photograph. But then
Mhm.
that's what we have cameras for,
Yeah.
and that's become my whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, and for years of painting that way and trying to get into a gallery, when you saw other paintings of boats and oceans and beautiful, paintings like that, and I'm not gonna knock anyone's style, but just stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go against that and paint what I feel and just paint my rough, keep it rough and just like not intentional, but not sit there and look back and sit there and look back and spend 4 months on a painting and be like, I think it's perfect now. Where I was like, you know what? Again, the universe is just gonna guide my hand, and it's just wherever those lines are supposed to be, that's where it's supposed to be. And sometimes it kills me because I'm like, I want to go back. And
do you ever get to a point where you're like, you feel like you gotta go back? Like, is there any challenges with that? Because like,
sometimes I do.
You just let go and like, all right, let's go wherever we go. Do you ever get to a point where like, okay, I don't like this?
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to.
Most of the time when I misspell a word, and I'm like, I can't have that. Especially if I'm writing a book, I can't have a painted. Or like a friend of mine, she'll like, I'll post it, and then she'll just comment the word, and when I see that, I'm like, oh fuck.
Damn.
And I look,
That's
and I'm like,
biggest fear
and I'm like, I forgot the whole word. So I go back, and then like I cross it out, and then on the other side I'll repaint it, but I leave it there, because the whole thought process is cool to me. Like when I see people's like process, like it's kind of cool to me, because it's even if it's a celebrity, like like everyday people, but like if it's a celebrity, because you're like, oh my god, they're just like us, they fuck up just like us, and they want to be perfect, but they're not. So I kept that roughness with the character and in the book, and I was like, this is who I am, and then I started, and I wrote the first page, and then I was like, I wasn't that bad. I was like, I'm just gonna write as much as I can and then rhyme it. So then I started going for it, and I started doing it. And before I knew it, there's like 5 other pages that I could have had in there that aren't in there. Maybe for the next one.
Okay.
But like I think it was a fact that I wanted it to be like a conversational, almost art piece. Like I wanted the book to be like an art piece where it's not necessarily just a children's book. That's why when I registered it, I didn't register it as a children's book. It's a family book, because I wanted to be, and adults have bought it with no kids, and they're like, we love this book. Like we just leave it on the coffee table and people read it. Yeah. And I wanted to be this anonymous, almost like book that just travels.
Okay.
From hand to hand, and people are like, "What is this?"
Where's this come from?
Yeah, and then it's like just this thing that just formed from my brain, and just in people's hands, and they're like, "Wow, like this is kind of cool," because like I wanted it to be also not necessarily like, I wanted to have real life facts. So in the book, it talks about in a way, anxiety and depression, where it's okay to be sad. Okay. And it's fun. Because when I was a kid, it wasn't. Or like, you don't think of it as a kid. Yeah, you have to be tough, or get over it, shake it off, you'll be fine. Yeah. Think happy thoughts, smile. Yeah. That's the worst one. Smile, like especially for women, like But it's like just smile. Yeah. Just, and I hated that. I'm like, I want to smile right now, So it was tapping on 10-year-old me, or like of my emotions, and because sometimes when I talk to kids, I can relate, and I think artists always, or should anyway, stay as little kids, like obviously take care of your responsibilities, but mentally, creatively, like just stay as a little kid, because I think they have the most truth to them,
So what is your favorite page? Or
my favorite page I think is the last one, the one with the ring, like the heart.
Okay.
It has like the realistic drawing of the heart, and it has all the colors in it. Because I think I summarized pretty much everything in that, and it's like a statement more than anything else. But then I always wanted, and I haven't seen too many, but I left the pages on after that, so people could draw on it and just write their emotions. And I did think about kids in that aspect, and just people in general, like just draw, write, do anything you want to the book. Like they have those write the journal kind of books, like. But I wanted it to have like, I wanted to have my message first, like get off my chest, and then it's like you go now. Like you do your own book, So that's how I kind of, So it was a whole process, because like. I wrote it, and I was like, shit, like now I was like, I can't just print it, because I have to have it checked. So I had it vetted and checked by like 2 different school teachers, 3 different school teachers, and probably 2-3 different copywriters, you know,
Mhm.
and I was just like, just look at it and make sure there's nothing glaring,
Mhm.
like, you know, that could go viral for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
like you know,
yeah.
like in the drawing, like if
Yeah.
something looks weird or,
Yeah.
you know, like, or anything sexual that
Uh-huh.
may, you know, because it does talk
Like
about love. and
accidentally come out.
yeah. Like I don't want it to be like Disney. Like you know, they say there's penises here. Like I was like, just look at it because I don't want it to. I don't want to. God, I don't want to go viral for the wrong. And then people are buying the book for the wrong reason. But no, yeah. I just wanted it. So I had it vetted and checked and rechecked and checked, and then I put it away for like 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
And I was like,
For what? Why?
just because that moment, you know, that moment
So
where
you're
it's just
waiting
like
for the
you're
right
scared. No, because you're scared and you're just like, holy shit, like I think it's done.
Mhm.
But then I also didn't have a final cover.
Mhm.
So that, as far as my process, which I'm a slave to and it sucks, was like, it'll come to me.
So that's.
So it didn't come to me for a while, and I was just like, because I did, you know, graffiti style, love more than ever, and it was just the 4 words,
Mhm.
and it was actually the side of the bin. That was the original.
Oh really?
That was the original.
With the heart.
With the heart.
Okay.
Like that was the original,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like, like there's no personality to it. Like
Yeah.
the whole inside has me as a kid and just
Uh-huh.
like having fun and going through things and
Yeah.
you know, and it wasn't per se like a beginning to end storyline, but it has lessons along the way.
Yeah.
And that's just coming from me. Like I'm no expert or anything, but
Yeah.
it's just stuff that I went through, and
Mhm.
and it seems like a lot of kids could relate to that because
Mhm.
you know they've reached out to me some way or another. But it was just like, so I didn't have a cover yet, so
Mhm.
I was like, there's no personality that catches that story that's inside.
Mhm.
So eventually I was like, you know what? I was like, I think it's easy. I'm just gonna write the title, messy like I do everything else,
Mhm.
and then just draw me on, you know, the little character, Fizzy on the
Yeah.
character. And then I did it, and I always run things past my daughter and like Aaron,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, all right, like, I think I got it.
Yeah.
And I could be stubborn where I'm like, I know I got it because I don't care what you guys say, this is it. And I showed them, and they're like, I love it.
Yeah.
And then it was a whole 4 weeks of picking the color
Uh-huh.
and doing that. I did research on like,
Uh-huh.
what colors mean, and you know, like red's creative, and like.
So what does
blue's
that color
inspiration.
mean?
I don't know. I'll get back to you. I'll let you know. Nah, I think it's more inspirational. It's
Okay.
an inspirational color, and I'm like, yeah, and also you know what other books done, and then I wanted it, and also resizing it because originally it was like 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
It was a bigger book,
Mhm.
and then I had to resize the whole thing, and
Mhm.
format everything different. And I'm like, ugh. And then I was like, Aaron was like, you know what? Like it should be smaller, and then I was like. So then I looked at Dr. Seuss's books, and I was like, you know what? These are like handheld, like
Yeah.
small but big enough to read,
Yeah.
and you know you can hold them in one hand, put them away.
Mhm.
Little kids can hold them. So
Yeah.
it was this whole thing, and eventually I got it out,
Yeah.
and like I said, like it was awesome. The reaction was phenomenal.
So, and then if you can sum up, like, what was the biggest challenge as far as like, I'm curious. The way I guess I'm going about this too, I'm literally just trying to absorb as much knowledge as I can, right? Like I like I'm you're a huge inspiration. So to me,
Thanks,
it's like,
man.
you know, like I'm like, all right, like, you know,
I'm the same way. I'm
you
the
know,
same way with
I-
everyone. Like everyone I talk to, I like
Exactly.
to just
And I want to learn lessons because I mean I think for me I think listening to you talk, right, like what I'm taking away from it is that, like, so for instance the book seems that was something that in a way was more for you in the sense of like you went through your own things and you learned from these experiences and now you're trying to like give back and put it out there, and you know, and if to see like, you know, who else can benefit from it. If I benefit
Right.
from it, other people can. So I kind of do that as well. So I like in moments like this, I'm kind of just trying to understand some things for myself. So my question to you is that, like, you know, like, what was the biggest challenge in the process of creating this book? Like something that, like, either a moment for you where you're like, fuck, like, you know, or and like how did you overcome that, right? Even if it's like either anxiety or doubt
Yeah.
or no. Or
So,
anything
so
like that.
I think the biggest challenge, and I kind of touched on it before, was is it going? You weren't recording.
This
the
is
whole
my
time.
biggest thing.
You weren't recording the whole time. I hate that shit. That's my biggest.
We're good.
Was the storyline, the rhyming part.
Mhm.
Like, not so much so that I knew that I couldn't do it, that I doubted myself.
Mhm.
Well, I always doubt myself anyway. But like, you know,
Interesting, okay.
it was the fact that would it make sense,
Mhm.
you know, and also for copywriters to check it, because you do have some liberties when you're rhyming. You know, you there's some liberties with the wording and how you do it, because I wanted it, because I'm a huge Shakespeare fan, so I wanted it to follow a pattern, because he had like iambic pentameter, like the way he wrote was a pattern. It was almost like a rhythm to it.
Cool.
So I wanted to write it that way, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write it that way. It's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna write it that way and see, you know, how. So the copywriters had a hard time because of how they had to read it, because you almost have to learn how to read it. Even me, like sometimes, because you know, like I go back in there and I try to read it, and like I have to reset myself, and I'm like, shit, I'm supposed to read it like this, you know. So there's a little pattern to the way you read it, and I did that on purpose because I wanted it to be read a certain way.
Okay.
You know, like I'm not saying I'm Shakespeare at all, but like, you know, I always studied Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was a big inspiration to me. Like, it was one thing, like in my freshman year or sophomore year, one teacher that she actually caught me cheating on the test when I was in school, in class. She called me. I had the paper right here. She called, and I lost sight of her because I was talking to my friend, and we were like cheating.
So you're cheating
and
talking to a friend.
She was right here. Well, we were cheating together, and she was right here. And I looked up, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And she was a big influence to me, because she pulled me aside after that. She was like, "You're better than this. Like, you could do better. Like, don't be an idiot. Like, you're smart. Like, you could do this." And then she introduced me to Shakespeare, and for some reason, I got it. I could understand what they were saying. Like in Romeo and Juliet, which is one of my favorite plays. Like, I could understand what they were saying, and it was exciting to me because, like, they were saying it in a code. It was like a code language, and you know, some of my friends didn't understand. I'm like, oh fuck this! Like, I don't get the hell he's saying. Why don't you just say what he means? So to me, it was like a whole coded language, and I was like, so I would get like Hamlet and read it, and like I would understand it, and I loved it, and I was like, oh, this is badass. So that became like a very big inspiration to me. That's why I knew, I was like, I gotta write something. And then when I started going into it, it was like waking up in the morning kind of feeling, like where you like, you know, you have to be somewhere and you don't want to move. I didn't want to have to write like that. You know what I mean? Like, because I was like, I know it's gonna make the book a lot more, you know, the time I got the book out a lot longer, and I had to sit there, and then I had the process of having to show someone, and I hate showing people before it's done. And then, you know, I got a good response from one of my friends that was a copywriter. She was like, I love it, this is awesome. And then I started getting a little bit more and more encouragement, and I was like, all right, this is cool, right? And then I showed someone else, I showed another friend, and I'm like, don't, like, I don't want like yes people around me, like either yes or no, like, you know, tell me. And then there was a friend of mine, her mom, who was a librarian. She read it, and she gave me the most notes, and she was like, so I had one page in there about, I think it was about like mirrors and like people, you know, it's still in there, but I edited the copy.
Oh, was it the self-love one?
It was about ugly or something, about being ugly, and she said as a librarian she would just flag it because of the word ugly. Even though, you know, in the context of it, it you know, it said...
It was a positive thing.
So she was like, she gave me those notes, I went back, rewrote that page, and just, you know, like punctuation and small things like that, so, yeah. But I did want it to read as a pentameter or some sort.
I actually, because we've talked a lot, and you told me a lot about certain inspirations, but I never knew the whole Shakespeare thing one. That's kind of cool. Yeah. So does that bleed through and into the other works that you do as well? Well,
it's funny because for a while when I started in my Instagram and all my social media, like profile, like captions, it said the Shakespeare street art. And that's what I had on it, was the Shakespeare street art, because I was like, you know what, I was like, I'm gonna write what I feel, and just started writing stuff around like New York City, like that's when I was going into New York City a lot, and I was just like, I'm just gonna write what I feel. And so that was like the thing. I was like, the Shakespeare street art, I was like, that's dope.
So where you are now, you know, like you released a book, Love More Than Ever, I think is a huge movement. Like we see you sharing things from all over the world. So, like, where do you see it going, and like, where do you want to take the movement and the message?
Honestly, like I am happy where it is, right? Because again, I don't want it to become nothing against them, but like I told you the shirt guys,
Life is good.
life is good kind of thing, which was I loved it, but like I didn't want it to become that and just be like a slogan, you know, on just being like, oh, life is good, and you see it because it dilutes the message and you get desensitized, and you're just like now you see it, you're just like, oh, it's a brand, it's not a saying anymore, it's like just a brand. So I kind of want it to be organic, where it goes, like I just like everything else, I just want it to happen organically, and I do turn down opportunities with like companies, and you know they're like, oh, we want this and we want this and we want to partner with you and do this, and I'm like, oh, I don't see it, you know, like I don't feel it. If I don't feel it, I'm not doing it. So if the end result helps people somehow, then I'll try to do it. But like with the book, and you know me, I'm more like stay in the shadows kind of guy. But with the book, I felt like, all right, like I got to come out more, because not for the book's sake, but for the kids that love the book and like want to see who I am, and like you know. So I try to. I'm always positive behind the scenes or in front of the camera, but like I'm like, you know what? Let me just come out for a little bit. When it's all said and done, then I go back. But no, it's fine, and it's just about end of the day. Like you don't even have to say. It's just more about uplifting people, you know, from all walks of life.
Yeah. Are you nervous at all about the book signing? Or
about the book signing? Yeah. I mean, I'm a
particular.
I'm an introvert, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of recharging. Well, because the day before I'm gonna be speaking to like over 1,000 kids in Bethel High School, and then I'm gonna come back here for the book signing. I feel like with the I'm nervous about the size, and hopefully we get enough people that we don't have to worry about that. The free art I always love, and just I love just, you know, talking to the kids, talking to the moms, talking to people that, because I'll hear stories, and that always like just fills my heart up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I know that like Love More Than Ever, I guess I wanted to kind of clarify, because I know you have a foundation, right? That's actually called Love More Than Ever.
Well, it's a scholarship.
A scholarship.
Yeah. So yeah, I started a scholarship because you know, just to go back to what I was talking about, where I take some of the proceeds that I make from the website, and you know, besides covering costs for the product and everything, I try to do something with it. So when I was in high school, by the time that story I told you, the teacher I got caught cheating, that same year I got caught skipping class by a hall monitor, and she took me to the principal's office, and she was like, we're gonna go to the principal's office, and I was like, you know, my parents raised me better than that. Like I know my dad was gonna be upset, my mom was gonna be upset, yell at me, so I was like, oh no. So she walked me all the way to the principal's office, and she sat me outside, like in the lobby outside, and she goes, promise me something. And I was like, oh shit. She was like, you're never gonna do that. You're gonna stay in class. You're gonna be a good boy. You know, and all the sayings that they say. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, if she let me go, I'm gone. So then she mentioned something about her son and how I kind of reminded her of her son. And after, I forgot how she worded it, but it kind of hit me. And I was like, oh. And it's that kind of talk where it hits your soul. And I was like, ugh. So she was like, so go to class. She was like, next time I see you though, you're gonna. So I was like, oh my god. So then, you know, I was into sports and everything, and you just mature over time, and then like you realize that you have to go to class and get good grades to play sports. You know. So I was like, you know, what am I gonna do? You know. So I went to class and did what I had to do to play sports, and I, you know, I try to mention all this when I talk to kids, because I just try to keep it, you know, real. I hate saying that phrase, but like I just try, you know, I like to talk with them and not at them. You know, like you got to do this, you got to do that. So you know, I say the same thing to them, and it's like, you know what, like I matured, and it was my senior year, and my art teacher came over, and she was like, she was like, Raph, like, there's this company that does graphic design and everything. They're looking for students to give scholarships for. She was like, and I nominated you. So they picked me to give me a scholarship. And, and I wasn't sure I wouldn't even want to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. Like high school, I was still like, it was my senior year. And I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. But they were going to give me some money. And I was like, I'll take it. Yeah. And then the woman that was a hall monitor, she pulled me aside the same way in the same hallway, and she said that she was going to give me a scholarship.
Wow.
And she said that it was in the name of her son, and her son passed away of cancer in that time. And that put life in perspective, because being 17, 18, you're just like you're immortal. You don't think about death. And her son was, I think, maybe 5-6 years older than I was. And you're like, wow, talking about pressure, because it was in his name. And the funny thing is, I don't remember her name. Like, I think I might still have the paper at home at my mom's house or something. But she was just like, so she said, I'm gonna give you. It's a little something. It's not much. It's what I can afford. And I was like, oh my God. So they both meant something to me, but hers meant a little bit more because of where it came from. Yeah. So I always wanted to do it. And I wanted to do it at Norwalk High, but like conflict issues, and then like I haven't been able to get in there and talk to anybody yet. So I was like, my daughter went to McMahon, and I was like, I reached out to them, and they're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, would love to do that. Yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I can't give that much, because it's whatever I make, and I hate hitting people up for money and everything. So the first year, like, luckily a couple friends donated, like Josh from Inside Out donated some money, and people started donating, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, like, because they're helping me out. And I and I told people, if you buy something from the website, a portion of that would go towards the scholarship. So some people even bought, and then some people just wanted to donate. So I was like, cool. So I took it and I developed a scholarship, and I told them, and I was like, for me, it's more about the belief. Like someone believes in you enough to get you that, to give you money. And when it happened to me, I was like, wow, she believes in me, like legit. From the time she called me as a little rugrat skipping to my senior year, and I was like, for me was, I don't remember what I did with it. I bought books, I think, for my first semester, but like, I was like, it was more about the belief in me, and I think that set my course, for me believing in myself. True. So if I could do that in some way or fashion, like, to kids,
you can pass that on.
And I've said that before.
Everything
where it's
lives forward. Like,
pay it forward, and I'm like, and it's not about the money. I mean, we've given away about $4,000 now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, to kids in the last 3 years or something. But I mean, it's, for me, like I said, it's just a belief in, and I try to tell them, because a lot of scholarships are around that much, 1,000, 1,500, 500, like, it doesn't matter. It's about the belief system. There's some that are $40,000, like, that could really help. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have one final question, and this is something I've since I started the lab, something that I try to ask myself as often as I can to kind of keep me in check, and I'm always curious to ask other people. But I call this the moon vision. So if you had to paint a picture of a vision for your life, like moving forward from where you are, what you've been trying to do, but if you had like a vision, like a dream, your best dream ever, for how your life would be, for being able to achieve whatever you wanted and live the best life you ever could, achieve all the dreams that you wanted to achieve, or without any restrictions or worried about anything else, like, what would that be for you? What would be your, for your own life, for what you're doing and everything that you're involved in, like, what would be like the best ultimate vision for
like the painting?
Your life?
Like what I would paint?
Not like just a
vision.
What would that be like? What would 5ivefingaz life and movement be like? Your ultimate best life.
Ultimate best life?
Yeah.
I mean,
even if it's just sitting on the beach.
It's just, if I had to pick an icon to represent that, it would just be a small little heart. Just a small little heart, because like that, to me, is how I started with it. and that heart represents so much that in the past years that like that to me represents so much more than people think, because it's just like either way, like the cartoony heart or like the real heart, because it entails with passion. It means passion. It means fight. It means it encompasses so much in that little shape, in either one of the shapes. But it's I like the raw version, the one that you actually have, because when people say play with your heart, or like the kid's got heart, and even in sports, because I was always the smallest one, I always use my heart. Like I would always try to out hustle. I would stay hours late after basketball practice. So I apply all that to my life now in general, and it was always that passion. So yeah, I don't know, like as far as a vision, like where I could be, is just happy, like just with no regrets, and just like happy that I can help out where I could, But if I had to paint something for that, it would just be like, maybe it's just like a canvas with a little tiny heart on it.
That's amazing, man. I just want to take a second to just acknowledge you for like inspiring, for having a big heart, for inspiring our community, for being extremely humble about it. I think that from the first time that I met you, like it's been
I covered my face.
Yeah, it's been a very, very surreal experience, from not knowing who you are to learning about you, and then you being involved in like the project that put me in this course, to inviting Jessica and I to be a part of the Sona Arts Fest in your scavenger hunt, and to constantly just like
you guys found all the people,
right? And constantly inspiring our community, always doing outdoing yourself and chasing your dream, and just being like a genuine good person. I think that I'm truly inspired by your work. I'm motivated by what you're doing, and I'm excited to be a part of that journey and to be able to help in any way that we can. So,
yeah, thanks, man.
I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, bro. And I'm super excited about this. I'm super excited about the book signing.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, the free paintings and everything. So, and one final. I mean, do you have anything else planned? Like, what else? What else is for 5ivefingaz?
Well, just the murals that are out here. Come check those out. Yeah, I think we have I'm gonna do something. Oh, that's why I wanted to ask you. Maybe you and Jessica do it too. I wanted to do with Linda like a dance thing where I paint live, and maybe they have the dances in the background, kind of event at her thing, at her place, dance on a DL in Darien. And we kind of spoke about it briefly, and it was supposed to, I was just gonna do like a book reading like 2 weeks ago, but with the weather, and like I think she had another event going on too, like we postponed it for March, but maybe we could get together and do something like that, and then I think it's just starting to write my other book, like get that out there, and just keep doing it, man. Just keep spreading.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
Peace out.
Yes, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course.